Alright, what's up, fight fans? You're watching Octagon Control MMA. So today we're going to be talking about tomorrow's main event. That's Carlos Condit versus Matt Brown. Two fighters definitely at the later stage of their career. Matt Brown's already said he's retiring after this fight. Carlos Condit's last fight on his contract. And he said that he's open to new offers from other organisations after this one. And with his recent record, he's only had one win in his last 7. And unless he has a very dominant performance in this, I think it's quite unlikely that the UFC will offer him anything new. Right, we'll talk about Carlos Condit first, then Matt Brown, then a side-by-side, then path to victory for both fighters, then finally my pick at the end. Right, so Carlos Condit first. His most recent fight was against Court McGee back end of last year. His first win since 2015. He's not had a great deal of luck recently. He did do very well against Court McGee, though. Nearly finished him at the end of the first round. He broke his nose. Pretty solid knockdown. It'll be on the screen for you now. Later in the fight, though, it was very back and forth. Decent fight for what it's worth. I think it was the featured prelim on that card. It was a Holly Holm Aldona card back in October of last year. It might have been on Fight Island, I can't remember. Okay, before that, he 2 submission losses to Cowboy Oliveira and Michael Chiesa, both in the second round. I don't want to talk about him too much. What I do want to talk about, though, is cast back to 2010-2011, when he put together a great run on his way to the UFC welterweight interim title. I appreciate we going well back here. It's on the screen for you now, though. 3 knockouts in a row. Rory McDonald, Dan Hardy and Don Young Kim. 3 very impressive fights, all in their own way. First off, Rory McDonald, he lost the first 2 rounds of that fight, and then managed to finish him with 5 seconds to go at the end of the 3rd round. Dan Hardy had just come off a loss to GSP, where he'd performed very well in a title fight, and everyone thought he was going to have no trouble at all against Condit with his Muay Thai style striking. Condit managed to get a 1st round knockout there, and then against Don Young Kim, the flying knee to ground and pound, which, again, very impressive. And then after that, he went on to fight Nick Diaz, where he won the interim title. And that was sort of where it all went downhill for him after there. He lost the unified title fight to GSP. Again, nothing to be ashamed of then. And I think he won 2 out of his next 9. Just went on quite a losing streak after that. But, he did fight again for the title against Robbie Lawler in 2016. It was a split decision loss in that one, but it was a very good fight. But how he got to the title shot, looking back at it, is very suspect indeed. But he was a former WEC champion, former UFC welterweight interim champion. So, decent fighter, definitely a legend, 31-13, so 44 fights in his career, 15 knockouts, 13 submission wins. Unfortunately, though, we haven't seen a great deal of that recently. Right, we'll talk about not Court McGee, that's who Condit for. Matt Brown next. As I said at the start, Matt Brown has said he's retiring after this fight. He's 40 years old at this point now, so that's not too shocking. 22-17 in his career, 14 knockouts, 6 submissions, 2 decisions, and yeah, that's another point I wanted to bring up. Out of 83 total fights between them, they've got 68 finishes, so I'd be surprised to see this one go to a decision myself. Okay, he most recently fought Miguel Baeza, whose name I always struggle with. He did get knocked out at the start of the 2nd round in this one, but he did very well in the 1st round. He had him up against a fence, throwing those big elbows that he does tend to land quite a lot. But he got caught with a counter as he was charging in at the start of the 2nd round and knocked out clean, so that was that. Before that, though, Ben Saunders, bit of a weird one there, I thought. But it was a round 2 knockout. Again, ground and pound, was a massive elbow in there, and a couple of follow-ups that's on the screen for you now. He yeah, it was a bit back and forth up until that point, but Saunders just seemed to fall over, as you'll be seeing. And then the ground and pound and the finish was inevitable. Okay, most exciting one I just watched the best finish I should say that I watched today, doing some research for this fight, was against Diego Sanchez. Sanchez, another fighter at the end of his career. He's recently come out and said he's only going to be having one more fight. Looking like it may be against James Krause, which I'm not massively excited to see, but wouldn't mind at the same time. So yeah, on the screen for you now though, he caught Sanchez's foot and then cracked him with a massive elbow, and then a sort of ragdoll, unconscious Diego Sanchez flops to the canvas, and then that's that. Right. In his fight before that, we're going back to UFC 206 now, just a quick word. He fought Donald Cerrone, Cowboy, and that was an absolute slugfest. He did get knocked out with a head kick in round 3, that'll be on the screen for you now, but it was an absolute war up until that point, both exchanging massive blows, and either of them could have won that fight. Cowboy got lucky to an extent with a head kick, but that was what that was. Alright, side by side now. Going to striking, grappling, chin, gas tank, and my new one, level of previous opponents. I've been struggling with 5th category. I used to have fight IQ, then I did excitement level, and I think quality of past opponents is a good one. Not necessarily wins, but just the high level experience that can come in handy, especially if fights go to later stages. Okay, so first off, striking, I'm going to go to Carlos Condit on this one. Again, this one really could have gone either way. Matt Brown, especially with his elbows, is very dangerous. Both Muay Thai style strikers, light on the front leg, expect a lot of leg kicks in this one. Excuse me, that wasn't planned at all. Yeah, but Carlos Condit, I'd say, has probably got the better knockout power. Perhaps not recently, though, with Matt Brown's 2 recent elbow KOs. So, yeah, very close on this one, but I think Carlos Condit's got the edge just on the experience side against the high-level opponents. Okay, grappling next. Carlos Condit for me on this one. 13 submissions on his record compared to Matt Brown's 6. He's, again, not had much recently, because he's not won very much recently. I think it's probably been 7 or 8 years since he had a submission, but his takedown defence is quite high. His defensive grappling and his ground and pound are all very good, as is Matt Brown, though. Like I said, a lot of these categories are very close. Okay, chin, I'm gonna go for Condit on this one again, purely because he's only been knocked out once, and Matt Brown has been knocked out 3 times, so that's all I really got for that one. Gas tank, Condit again, but he's a bit younger. His fights tend to go to decisions a lot more, but he's not fought very much recently. I think since 2015 he's got 6 fights. Matt Brown, I think, has got about 9 in that period. Neither of them massively active, but Matt Brown definitely the more active. Actually, screw that, I'm swapping it over. Gas tank's going to Matt Brown despite him being older, just because of the more recent experience that he's had. And I will point out, and this isn't an accusation, but Carlos Condit's slide, it does coincide with the introduction of USADA quite significantly. His results before and after USADA are starkly different, but I'll leave everyone to draw their own conclusions. That's the same with several fighters. I'm not suggesting he was taking anything. I'm not suggesting he wasn't. I'm just putting that information out there for people to do what they want with. Right, level of opponents. Both fought Damian Maia, both fought Robbie Lawler. Who else have they both fought? That's it on my list, actually. Worth mentioning, Matt Brown's got a win over Wonderboy, which not many people can say. Carlos Condit, on the other hand, he's beaten Nick Diaz, Roy McDonald, Dan Hardy, and 1 or 2 other relatively high-profile names. But again, I'm trying. When I say high-profile names, I'm trying to talk about ones that most people will have heard of. It's not to say that other people who thought haven't been good fighters. They've just not necessarily been as well known. So Carlos Condit there, just really because he's fought GSP, Woodley, that's probably swung it from a little bit. Okay, now for the path to victory for each fighter. Carlos Condit first. The odds for him to win, stoppage and decision are all on the screen for you now as well. I'm thinking a second or third round knockout is probably his best chance. I don't see anything happening too early on in this fight. I think both of them in the first round will be feeling each other out. But I think Condit could come through with something big in the third round. Maybe the second round we'll have to see though. Alright, Matt Brown, again, odds on the screen for you now for the win, stoppage and decision. He is coming in as the underdog in this one. And he's plus 400 for a decision, plus 300 for a stoppage. But I think Matt Brown for the stoppage probably isn't a bad look. He's got two solid knockouts in his last 3 fights, and he could have easily knocked out Beazer as well. So yeah, I think Matt Brown, earlier knockout though, first round knockout, I wouldn't be massively surprised to see that. But at the same time, I think if it goes into the second round, I've just got a feeling that Condit's probably going to come through. Alright, so finally for my pick, I'm going to go for Carlos Condit in this one. I don't know why. I think this one's going to be very close. I've thoroughly enjoyed researching this one. I've watched 4 or 5 fights of both of these guys this morning. But I just feel like Carlos Condit's got the edge with his youth, high level experience, and I think his striking's a little bit cleaner, if not necessarily more powerful. Right, that'll wrap us up for today. Don't forget UFC Fight Island 7 is on tomorrow. I don't know what time it's on in the UK because I'm going to be working, so I'm going to miss it. But I hope everyone who is watching it will enjoy it, and I'll be catching up when I get home. Right, take care. Bye-bye.